Hey there, fellow educators, and honestly, anyone who's ever wondered what would happen if we actually listened to teachers for once. I'm Leah Cleary, and this is If Teachers Ruled the World. After 25 years in the classroom, I've learned that teaching isn't really about having all the answers. It's about being brave enough to ask the right questions, and maybe, just maybe, admitting when we have no idea what we're doing, which, let's be honest, happens more often than we'd like to admit. So grab your coffee or whatever, and let's talk about the real stuff, the messy, imperfect, sometimes beautiful reality of what it's like to shape young minds while trying to keep our own sanity intact. Because if we're going to change the world, we might as well be honest about what that actually looks like. All right, let's dive in. Hey there, teachers. Welcome back to If Teachers Ruled the World. I'm Leah Cleary, and today we need to talk about something that I've been thinking kind of a lot about lately. It's that feeling that I get every Sunday. I will wake up on Sunday mornings and it is like a gut punch. I don't know how else to describe it. Now, you might know what I'm talking about. You might not. I think some of us do anyway. But it's just that feeling that like, oh my goodness, I have so much to do and we have to go back to work tomorrow. Actually, let me back this up and tell you about my whole weekend. Saturday morning, when I woke up, I felt a great deal of relief. That deep exhale of, oh, I made it through another week. I had 2 whole days ahead of me. No students, no bells, no being on. Now, that was Saturday. I already told you about how I felt when I woke up on Sunday. And I'm saying in the past, I probably would have made a list and would have just started working through it so that I could feel less overwhelmed. But I didn't this time. I needed to take some time to myself. I could just feel it. It had been building up. So I did something I haven't done in I don't know how long. Sunday morning, I got up, I poured my coffee, and I picked up a book, The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. Now, I read The Handmaid's Tale a very long time ago, and I know that The Testaments came out a few years ago, but I'm just getting around to it. And guys, all day long, I just read. I sat down Sunday morning, I read, and I kept reading. And at around 5 or 6 p.m., I finished the book, and it felt really good. It felt like being human again. You know what I mean? Like remembering that I'm a person who has thoughts, who has interests outside of lesson planning and grading. And guys, this is something that can be really hard for teachers in different seasons of our career because sometimes we're much busier than others. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that Monday morning felt good. It did not. I woke up on Monday morning and yes, I had filled out my lesson plans for the week on my agenda, but there were some things that still needed making, especially for the course that I'm designing right now, World Geography. And I know that there's plenty of world geography stuff out there. I'm not completely reinventing the wheel, but the first time that you teach something, it's just a little bit harder. And I had a giant stack of DBQs that were just sitting there that I hadn't finished grading yet, and a big old stack of tests that I needed to grade. So that's when that little voice inside of me started up. It said, "You spent all day reading yesterday. You should have been working. You're behind. You're not ready. You're letting everyone down." And here's the thing. I do try to have boundaries, real ones that I've worked really hard to establish. I use AI to cut my grading time literally in half. I have 25 years of experience, so I've established curriculum for most of my classes. I'm always tweaking it, true, but I am using AI to help me plan, to help me grade where I can. And I'll leave a link in the show notes for my free custom GPT that can help you make custom GPTs to help you grade. I've done everything that the wellness experts tell us to do, but I still wake up on Sunday morning with the dread of everything I have to do, and I always feel like I'm starting the week behind. So what does that mean? Is this just me? Am I doing something wrong? Or could it be the job? I think we need to sit with this question for just a minute. What does it mean when you've done everything the wellness experts tell you to do and you still feel this way? You still feel overwhelmed, like you're never caught up? Because I think that the actual answer is probably pretty uncomfortable. When you have good boundaries, when you're using tools to work smarter, when you have experience and established systems and you still feel exhausted every Sunday night, that's not a personal failure. At least I don't think it is. That's information about the job itself. What it means is that the job has too many demands. And I know it's different for different people. The elementary teacher's exhaustion looks different from the high school teacher's exhaustion. The grading load is different. But the exhaustion that comes from giving everything you have to young people all day long, that is universal, whether you're teaching elementary, middle school, high school, preschool. And what I'm realizing is that most teachers I know are doing everything the experts suggest. Or they're at least trying to, while still trying to keep their head above water, but they're still worn out. That, my friends, is not an individual problem. That is a systemic issue. So what are we supposed to do with that information when we just can't quit? When we're not in a position to quit? When we don't want to quit, but we're exhausted and we're overwhelmed? I think one thing we need to do is acknowledge that maybe the system itself needs to change. But we also need to acknowledge something else, something I've been wrestling with. We, my friends, will never be done. Never. There will always, always, always be more to do. And I need to learn to look at that reality and say, that's okay. That's something I am working on hard right now because I'm not really sure how to do that. Because I'm the kind of person who likes to tie everything up with a bow and be finished. I like that sense of completion. And teaching? Well, you are never, ever finished. You never get that sense of completion. Let me tell you what my plate looks like right now, and maybe you'll see yourself in this. Maybe you have more on your plate, maybe you have less on your plate. I have 3 preps. One of them is brand new. No textbook to fall back on, building curriculum from scratch while I'm teaching it. And yes, I'm borrowing too, but we personalize things. We have to learn how to teach things. It takes time. When you've got something brand new and you're just scrambling, finding yourself working extra hard just to stay one day ahead of the kids. Then I've got my established courses, AP World History, World History. And even though I'm reusing lessons that have worked really well in the past, even though I've got years of material to draw from, these are heavy grading loads, even with AI augmentation. And yes, I'm using my custom GPT for grading. It's still time consuming. It's not autopilot, and it can still get ahead of you. I've got over 60 AP students. Making resources, even with AI help, it is time consuming. Writing good tests is time consuming. I coach mock trial, which somehow takes up way more time than it seems like it should. I have family obligations, life. And here's what I figured out. I am constantly doing triage. Do you feel that way? I find myself rotating through what gets my attention. This week, I put the DBQs aside so I could plan some world geography lessons. Next week, I'll put the really cool geography idea that I had and go bare bones minimum so I can grade those DBQs or build a lesson for world history. In my mind, planning always has to take precedence because the students need something to do in class. They need to learn. We can't just put that on pause. So everything else gets pushed aside when I get behind on that. And triage isn't supposed to be the permanent state of teaching. It's really uncomfortable when it is. When I had one prep, oh, those were the days. That was back in 2017 to 2018, so it has been a while. There was truly a balance, and I got to see for that brief year what that balance looked like. Planning and grading can coexist. I had time for both. But now with 3 preps and one of them new, there's no balance. There's just choosing what gets attention this week and what has to wait. That's not sustainable and it doesn't feel great, but it is the reality of the job. I want to tell you about that 2017 to 2018 school year because I think it's important. I just had world history, one prep. I had been teaching it since 2007, even though I had taught other classes in tandem with it. But I had a complete curriculum that I'd designed over the years of teaching it, and I knew it inside and I knew it out. And you know what? It was so much fun because I got to play. I made escape rooms for my students. I gamified everything. We did scavenger hunts, creative, engaging activities, lots of fun source analysis. And I know source analysis isn't fun, but it is for me. And my students, they were excited about my classes. They knew it was going to be good and they looked forward to it and they talked about it. And I had confidence, real confidence. I knew I had time to get done what needed to get done. I could be creative. I could try new things. I could make teaching fun for them and for me. And I could stay on top of my grading. I really do miss that. I miss the playfulness. I miss the confidence of knowing I'm prepared. I miss students lighting up because they know class is going to be something special. I miss feeling like I have enough time. And here's what's hard. I know what I'm capable of when I can be 100%. I've been that teacher. I want to be that teacher all the time. But when you're spread across 3 preps, and that happens to a lot of us. Some of you, I'm sure, have way more than 3 preps. When one of your preps is brand new, when you're building curriculum while you're teaching it, you cannot be 100% everywhere. You just can't. The math doesn't work. And this is really weird to say, but I feel like I'm grieving that. I think that's what I need to name. I'm grieving the teacher I want to be, the teacher that I know I can be, while trying to survive as the teacher I have the capacity to be right now. And a lot of that capacity, it's not personal, it's because of scheduling. So here's where I'm landing, and this is the part I'm still learning. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing adequate as phoning it in, as a failure. But I don't think adequate is phoning it in. Adequate is what sustainable teaching looks like when you're spread across multiple preps and you're trying to remain human, which we need to do. Let me give you some examples about what adequate actually looks like in my classroom. We reuse lessons, especially if they worked well the first time. That's not lazy, my friends. That's smart. That's using our experience. We borrow from other people. Sometimes I say, okay, they need to learn this content today, and I don't have something perfect planned, so we're just going to work through it together. That's not failure. That's responsive teaching. We build curriculum while we teach it, making resources on the fly, writing tests that are good enough rather than perfect. That's not phoning it in. That's survival when you're teaching something for the first time. But I'm telling you, it does feel like failure when you know what that 100% looks like. When you've been the teacher who had time to make escape rooms and scavenger hunts, when you've seen students excited because they know class is going to be fun, adequate feels like you're letting them down. Adequate feels like you're letting yourself down. And I think teaching culture has convinced us of this lie, that anything less than engaging, creative, 100% effort is failure. But you know what? 100% across multiple preps isn't sustainable. It's a setup. It's setting us up to fail. It's setting us up to burn out. It's setting us up to feel like we're never good enough because the standard is impossible. Let me ask you something. If another teacher came up to you, someone you respect, someone you care about, and they said this, "Oh, I'm teaching 3 preps. One of them is brand new. I'm coaching. I have 60 AP students. I'm doing everything like I think I should do. I have boundaries. I'm using AI tools. I have all this experience, and I still feel exhausted and get that pit in my stomach every Sunday. I feel like I'm just being adequate in my classroom, and adequate feels like failure." What would you tell them? Well, I know what I'd say. I definitely would not call them a failure. I wouldn't think they were phoning it in. I would have compassion for them. I'd tell them they're doing an incredible job managing all of that, just keeping their little nose above water. I'd tell them that adequate in their situation, that's actually pretty darn impressive. But here's the thing. We always judge ourselves by harsher standards than we would ever apply to someone else. We have this tendency to give other teachers grace while withholding it from ourselves. We'd never tell another teacher they're failing for being adequate, but we tell ourselves that all the time. So maybe the work isn't learning how to do everything at 100%. Maybe the work is learning to give ourselves the same compassion we'd give a colleague in our position. I want to get back to Sunday for a minute, to that choice I made to spend the day reading. It felt good, I'm not going to lie, but it was also bittersweet because that was time I could have spent grading those DBQs, or planning next week's lessons, or building resources for the new course. There is always something I could be doing, but I took that time for myself, and I enjoyed it. And then I felt guilty about it. So I have to ask myself this: is that teaching more sustainably? Or is that just another thing to feel guilty about? I think I'm learning that it's a gain, even when it doesn't feel like it. Because here's what I'm realizing. Our students need us functional more than they need us perfect. They need a teacher who's read a book and remembered what it feels like to be curious, to be engaged in something outside of work. They need a teacher who models that you can't pour from an empty cup, even when the guilt voice says you should keep pouring anyway. They need a teacher who's going to be there in May, not a teacher who burned out in February trying to be 100% at everything. So maybe taking Sunday to read wasn't selfish. Maybe it was the most important thing I could do to stay in this profession for the long haul. I can't tell you how to make peace with never being done. That's a fact of this job, and that's something that after all these years, I'm still learning myself. I'll wake up some Sundays with that punch in the gut. I still feel the gap between the teacher I want to be and the teacher I have the capacity to be. But I'm learning that adequate is not the same thing as phoning it in. Adequate, when you're managing a lot of preps, when you're coaching, when you have a family and a life, is actually pretty impressive. Adequate means students are still learning. They're still engaged. Even without the fun games and escape rooms and scavenger hunts, they're still getting what they need from me. And maybe, just maybe, they're getting something they need from me even more. A model of what sustainability looks like. A model of what giving yourself grace and compassion and self-care looks like. Not martyrdom, not burnout, not perfectionism. I don't want to be that person in May. Just a teacher doing her best with the capacity she has. A teacher who reads books on Sunday. A teacher who rotates her focus because she can't be 100% everywhere at once. A teacher who's learning slowly, imperfectly, that adequate is enough. because we'll never be done. There will always be more we could do. And that has to be okay. So if you're waking up on Sunday with that punch in the gut feeling, I want you to hear this. It's not because you're failing. It's because you care deeply about a job that demands more than one person can sustainably give. You're adequate is enough. Your students need you to survive this job more than they need you to martyr yourself to it. I kind of want to say that again. Oh my goodness, because that's really important. Your students need you to survive this job more than they need you to martyr yourself to it. And maybe, just maybe, taking time to read on Sunday or to binge Netflix or to take that walk or to do whatever fills your cup. Maybe that's not selfish. Maybe it's the most important thing you can do. Be kind to yourself this week. You are doing better than you think you are. I'll talk to you next time on If Teachers Ruled the World. That's it for this week on If Teachers Ruled the World. Be sure to subscribe, share with a teacher friend, and join the conversation at leahcleary.com. Until next time, keep ruling your classroom and rewriting the rules.